There's me and my so there is my cousin, 1, their so and their 2 children ranging in age from 7 to 9, my aunt, my other cousin, 2, my other cousin, 3, and his son who is 18. Cousin 2 and 3 are siblings. We are all 40 and over. All have jobs except for the kids, the 18-year-old and the aunt, who is retired. We've decided to plan a family reunion for 4 nights 5 days. Cousin 2 paid $1,500 for the cabin and left the planning and buying of food to me and cousin 1. Cousin 1 has not helped financially at all. That has left me and my so to buy the food. Because I knew it would fall on us for several months now, we've been buying food little by little when we buy our groceries. We estimate we will spend close to $1,000 when it's all said and done. We aren't planning elaborate meals, but buying food for 10 people for 11 meals adds up. Cousin 2 is well aware cousin 1 isn't helping with the food and that it's just me and my so paying. Cousin 2 continually reminds me that we have an 18-year-old man coming and he eats a lot and that we need to make sure we have enough for him. I explained I bought a package of 40 hamburger patties. Even if all 10 people eat 2 hamburgers apiece, there will 20 hamburger patties left. I also said we're planning on 5 pounds of ground beef for spaghetti and another 5 pounds for chili. There will also be sides like rice or salad or cornbread or garlic bread. I've planned like that for every meal. Plus there will be bread and peanut butter and jelly and cereal. I can't imagine there won't be leftovers that he can eat if he gets hungry. He's still insisting that's not enough food and we should buy a couple of rotisserie chickens, and cousin 3 suggested we buy ramen for his 18-year-old son. Cousin 3 and his son haven't not financially contributed even a penny towards this, nor do they have plans to pay for anything. I'm flatly refusing to buy extra food, and after the 10th text message I finally told cousin 2 that since cousin 3 and his son were getting a free vacation, if the food provided isn't enough then he can starve. I might have also called them moochers to have the gall to suggest foods that I could buy for them. So am I the asshole for being stubborn and refusing to buy something as cheap as ramen? Update 1. One cousin paid for the cabin and left the planning and buying meals to me and another cousin. The other cousin has not helped buy anything. Literally nothing. We're talking probably close to 1K of food bought and he hasn't paid not 1 penny. Won't Venmo me money, won't buy stuff on his own. Constant excuses. Last night he messaged me and the cousin that paid for the cabin and said he wanted to invite more people. The cousin that paid for the cabin said no, was actually polite about it. I've seen the texts, and the one who hasn't contributed a dime is now flipping out because he was told no. I'm just dumbfounded at this point. I don't have a lot of family left. That's why I was biting my tongue about the ones not paying towards this trip, but I'm just shocked that someone who hasn't contributed a dime to a trip thinks they can invite 4 other people and gets upset when told no. Update 2. Our weekend is almost over, the last of the family leaves tomorrow, so I figured now would be a great time to give you guys the update. Quick recap for those that don't want to click on my post history to read the backstory. Cousins had a great idea to do a family reunion over Thanksgiving in a cabin in the woods. Not everyone was pulling their weight financially, and then one wanted to invite extra people. Said person got a bit butthurt when he was told no. Well, the cousin that wanted to bring extra people did not bring them. And he actually bought groceries. There was a group list going and he stopped before he got to the cabin and bought everything that was on the list that hadn't been bought yet. Then 2 days later we had to make a grocery run for more food. Several people had the munchies, and that was a decent bill and he paid that. He also helped with the cooking and cleaning. So in my eyes he pulled his own weight. The cousin that brought his brother and nephew. They spent the entire time high and drunk. But they weren't annoying. So while I personally don't see the point of what they did, I'm not gonna complain. Plus we'd wake up in the morning and he always made something like cookies or prepped food for the day. And he was great at emptying and refilling the dishwasher. Only one kid came. We had a blast with said kid. My so had fun as well. For me, I was pleasantly surprised. I had a great time and it was really neat to see my daddy and my cousins. From mannerisms, to facial features, to the one cousin who is covered in fur from head to toe. It's been hard on me since my dad died, and for reason that would fill a book I didn't grow up with this side of the family. So I had a great time reconnecting with them. We had a family meeting where we came up with a budget and how much each person needed to contribute to keep this thing going. The plan is to do the same next year. I'm supposed to call tomorrow to see about reserving the cabin for next year. Update 3. I seem to have a decent following and responses from my last 2 posts, so I figured I'd give you guys another update. We are trying to make this a yearly tradition. We've gotten together the last 2 years and no one has killed someone, so we're trying for a 3rd time. On a cruise ship this time ominous music plays. The place we stayed at the last 2 times doesn't have any openings for the next 2 years, so after trying Airbnbs that charge a heck of a lot for a place big enough for us, I finally say screw it, we're looking at cruises. And wouldn't you know, there's a fairly cheap one that aligns with the dates we can go. Somehow it all fell on me to organize it. And it's like herding cats. I need specific info from each person going. And we're up to 10 people. And group emails and texts go unanswered, so I have to individually harass each person to get very basic info like birth dates, full names, and email addresses. Finally gave an ultimatum that worked. Give me your info today or you're not going. And finally, miraculously I got everyone's info. I'm so impressed with myself, I'm going to reward myself with a nice margarita tonight, or maybe something stronger. We've divided the cabins up basically by households. If you live with or came out of the body of a specific someone, that's who you're gonna be in a cabin with. I chose the cheapest cabins for all but one cabin. The more expensive cabin will entirely be paid for by the people occupying it. One of the cheap cabins may not get to go. No one else is footing the bill. Those two people occupying it are responsible for their portion. If they can't pay, they don't go and no one else is penalized. They know this. They have 10 months to come up with the price of their cabin. It will be a struggle. The struggle is entirely due to poor financial management. One of the persons in the cabin who may not get to go is asking to switch roommates and cabins with the more expensive cabin. The same person that did not contribute anything to the last reunion. Not even cleaning up, cooking, organizing. Nada. And they think they are going to weasel their way into a free cruise. Not gonna happen. Edit, I'll keep giving updates as long as people want to hear about my crazy family. I imagine I won't have another update until the final payment is due, and that's not till August. Update 4. I have a surprising amount of followers and I promised to update once the cruise had to be paid for, and so here we are. It's going to be a short update, because we haven't gone on the cruise yet. Once we get back from the cruise I'll update again. Feel free to click my name and read through my previous posts. And yes, I read the criticism about using numbers rather than fake names. So I'll just be vaguer and not mention numbers. It was a mess getting all the info needed to book the cabins, but we did. The entitled aunt tried to switch rooms with someone else who has a suite, while only paying the inside cabin rate. That was shot down immediately. One cabin fell through, so those two will not be joining us. There was a breakup and then the other person couldn't afford to pay for the cruise. Everyone else is paid for, and everyone paid for their own cabin. It did come down to literally the last moment. I expected the entitled aunt to have to drop out, but she somehow found the money. All but one cabin has bought the drink package. The cabin that can't afford to buy the drink package thinks they can buy wine, pour it out and fill it with something stronger. We shall see if that is smuggled on board. Feel free to take bets on that. Another cabin wants to smuggle pot on board even though they are well aware of the drug dogs at the port. That cabin plans to vacuum seal it. Feel free to take bets on if that cabin gets caught. My cabin will get on that ship whether the others do or not. And I plan to spend the majority of the cruise drunk if the others do actually make it on board. I'm thinking of getting everyone Yeti cups, or maybe a tote bag with some sort of phrase to commemorate this year's family vacation. Update 5. You know that phrase, "You're a glutton for punishment"? Well, yeah. That's me. So one thing I purposely failed to mention in my other posts is that I have another vacation planned for my so and I right before we go on this cruise. As in, we come home, have about enough time to wash clothes and repack before we have to leave to go on the cruise. Oh, and didn't I mention the first vacation is overseas, so it takes a bit more planning than a US vacation? We leave in a few days for that vacation. I'm also still working 45 plus hours a week up until the day we leave, so I don't have a lot of time to devote to the cruise. I've made that clear to everyone going on the cruise. Since we're a bit less than a month from the cruise, we can check in, and I'm trying to coordinate that with everyone and having a tough time doing that. Texts go unanswered. I'm to the point I simply don't care any longer. I checked my so and I in and that's it. I have spent a week trying to coordinate time since we are supposed to carpool there. But I'm done trying to get people to answer my fucking texts. And here's where you guys that have read this far are looking for. The juicy stuff. The drama stuff. Back when we planned this cruise, everyone told me they had a passport. I thought that was the end of that. I didn't think I needed to investigate further into that. Unfortunately, I should have. So I explained to one how to check in online and mentioned having your passport handy so you can enter that info. Said person then takes that moment to inform me that their passport is expired. They also have no clue where their birth certificate is. At this point, said person may not be getting on the cruise. Luckily for them, they live in the state they were born in and the state capital is just a few hours from their home. So I sent them a link to set up an appointment in person to get their birth certificate. I have not followed up with them to find out if they made the appointment or found their birth certificate. I'm officially done for this year trying to corral everything. I have gone above and beyond for a freaking year now and I have no fucks left to give. Who wants to take bets on if the one with the expired passport gets on the ship? Update 6. Last I left you guys, my so and I were gearing up for an overseas trip, coming home and then almost immediately going on this family cruise. Well, we are back from both, so now it's time for the updates. Our trip overseas was amazing. We got to spend time at a hotel that has amazing views of Mount Fuji, and we stayed at a ryokan with our own private hot spring. Absolutely amazing and picture perfect, and we will be going back. We got home, I had about enough time to wash clothes and repack before we got on the boat. So all of us live in the same state, some closer than others. The ones that live about 10 hours away started out Tuesday and spent the night in my town so we could carpool to the cruise terminal. The ones that live about 5 hours away decided to drive down the day of. They headed out about 4 a.m. Thanksgiving Day and met us at a place open Thanksgiving Day. And that's when they dropped the bomb on us. One of the persons in their party did not remember to pack their passport and they didn't have their birth certificate. Yes. It is the same group that I mentioned before whose passport was expired. Same group, different person. That person, miraculously, found their birth certificate so they were golden. We drive down to the cruise terminal, help everyone with their luggage, and boy was there a lot of luggage. And one went to ask about the whole passport situation. He came back to let us know that the person that forgot their passport absolutely would not be allowed on the cruise. Said person had every opportunity to upload their passport ahead of time, and had they done that they would have been allowed to sail. But nope. Said person did not do it. So we watched two from our group board the bus back to the parking lot to retrieve their vehicle and head home. No temper tantrums, no blaming me, at least not yet. They are trying to get future cruise credit for their missed cruise, but it's not looking good. The rest of us got on the ship. And that's where the fun began. All of us have been on cruises before, so we knew what to expect, but nothing prepared us for this trip. This was a 5-day cruise on a small older ship that wasn't laid out very well. Especially in a post-COVID world. People had no concept of personal space, anywhere. Not on the elevators, not in line for the buffet, not in line for coffee, not sitting at a table. They also had no concept of cleaning up after themselves or even flushing a friggin' toilet. Plates of half-eaten food in the stairwells next to the art pieces. Half-drunk drinks all over the railings. Dirty tissues in the elevators. People, adults and kids, not covering their mouths when they sneeze or cough. Had a kid that looked to be about 7 cough directly on my arm, and mom didn't apologize or even say anything to her heathen. Watched a lady smack the absolute shit out of another lady right by the service desk, and they did nothing. For a moment I thought we were at Walmart. This was not the experience any of us has had on past cruises, so it was a total surprise to us. And on to only bit of family drama that actually made it on the ship. The one cousin that planned to bring edibles did apparently bring them and decided to eat 1 or 2 gummies and also literally drink all night long and into the morning of embarkation while not sleeping the last night we were on the ship. Made for a not pleasant embarkation, trying to track his ass down to get off the ship. And I'm already planning the next family cruise. Hopefully people will be more prepared for the next cruise. So I want to clear a few things up since my posts make it to update group and people there have questions. Yes, I address my followers because, surprisingly, I have 529 followers as of right now. And as long as people want to know, I don't mind letting you guys see a glimpse into my life. And yep, I'm just as shocked as some of you that people are following my crazy family. Y'all really should let me tell you about the other side of my family, that one's got murderers and all. It's def a lot more interesting than this side of my family. Now on to money questions. My so and I don't have kids and we're a bit older, so we have a lot of disposable income. When I bitch about paying for others, it's because those people feel entitled to my, and others, money. Those people have always been like that and I don't play into their games. They are not rich, and I always take that into consideration before booking any family vacation, but they truly feel they are entitled to go and not pay. It's not a question of being too poor to go and everything to do with making poor financial decisions and expecting others to pay for their vacation. When we did the cabin, I was perfectly okay with paying a larger share of the food if the ones that didn't pay anything contributed in other ways. Like cooking or cleaning. They didn't. They either sat on their rear end complaining they needed a money tree or drank themselves drunk the entire time. When I would say, hey, I need you to make this, and literally hand them everything they needed to make it, they would feign ignorance and then proceeded to purposely fuck up the food I gave them in hopes of getting out of future things. I don't play those games. That's why we decided a cruise for Thanksgiving. That way everyone paid their fair share. The 2 people who aren't as flush with money were asked before I booked if they could afford it. They both said yes. And they were given 9 months to come up with less than $500 apiece. Well, no, that's incorrect. They had 9 months to come up with $125 altogether. One conveniently left out that they had booked a cruise for after our cabin family vacation. Yes, the same vacation said person said they couldn't afford to help pay for. They paid $1,200 for the cruise and then couldn't go, so they had a credit with the cruise line that covered 2 people's cruise minus taxes and port fees, that $125 figure. Yes. There is a discrepancy in how much was paid and what they owed. You, apparently, can't use future cruise credit for port fees and taxes. They did struggle to come up with the $125, but again it was because of poor financial choices. They aren't required to come, and I do talk to THM before booking anything to make sure they can afford it. I don't just assume they can and book it. I ask, I go over the details, and once I get a yes then I proceed. Also, because some people didn't know this. Cruises can be cheap. We booked inside cabins, and for 2 people for 5 days it was $500 per person. So about $100 a day. That includes meals. There were some questions about my private vacations that don't include my family. We book years in advance. Years. 2024 and 2025 are already booked, and if my so would let me I'd have booked 2026 too. There was 5 days between when we landed back home and when we had to be on the cruise ship. And in that time frame my so and I still had to work 3 of those days. I also work 9 to 10 hours days and have about a 3-hour round trip commute each day. That's what I meant when I said we only had about enough time to wash clothes and repack. We are able to get decent deals on our vacations because we book far in advance. Japan cost us about 10 grand altogether for 2 weeks including airfare. We started in Tokyo and made our way across the country. We went to Kyoto, Takayama, We got to see Mount Fuji, Hiroshima and just so many awesome things. For that we hired an excellent travel agent who got us great deals on hotels, attractions and tour guides. Now onto the sorta update. One person told me that financially they are struggling and couldn't afford a family vacation, and I believe them. So I suggested we go up to where they live this year. That saves them from hotel rooms and gas, and then they only have to come up with activities and meals. They agreed, said that was an excellent idea. I then spoke to the others and they flatly refused the idea. They want a cruise. Cruise doesn't work for two of the people, and I told them that. Their response is that two poorest people shouldn't dictate the rest. I disagree. I have no issue working around people's finances so that we can include everyone. So we're at an impasse. I gave everyone till January 15th to figure out what we were doing, and that deadline came and went with no communication. So I booked a second vacation for my and I for Christmas. We've now used up all of our vacation time and I have nothing left over for the family vacation. In the last 2 weeks the one that flatly refused anything but a cruise is trying to figure out something. They've suggested going to Vegas, or Louisiana, or Biloxi. I've said each time that they need to speak to the one who told me they couldn't afford it and see what they say first. I'm not helping or planning anything. Update 7. No family get together this year. I tried to organize something but things just didn't work out. Some couldn't afford a cruise. The camp we stayed at last time books up years in advance, plus again, money is an issue. I looked into casinos, because at one time they used to offer cheap hotel rooms and we are close enough to casinos to make that an option. The problem is the rooms aren't cheap anymore. And again, money. I suggested we rent hotel rooms in the town that the family that can't afford anything lives, but that was shot down because some didn't want to go there. And to be perfectly honest, I don't blame the ones who shot that down. Who wants to go to Dallas for a vacation? So I gave up trying to figure things out. I got several late night drunk / or maybe high on Ambien texts from my aunt wanting to know prices for the cruise, and after I told her the prices she quit texting me about it. Hubby and I leave in a few days for a nice 2-week vacation to Greece, and then we come home and we close on a brand new home, and then a few weeks later head off to another vacation in Mexico for Christmas. When we don't have to finance others' vacations, we can afford more of our own. Our new home will be big enough to host my family, but I'm not sure if that will happen. We are moving out in the middle of nowhere but in a neighborhood, and I just don't think I want to subject neighbors to my family. My husband is on board with it, he's a saint, but we shall see how things go next year before deciding to host my family. Now on to second story. Mother-in-law invaded our home, criticized my choices, and questioned my mothering skills, so I finally kicked her out. So I, 26F, am currently 32 weeks pregnant with mine and my husband Felix's, 27M, first child. Things have been going well, and one of the great things is that Felix is a builder, and so everything with the nursery went pretty smoothly pretty fast. We agreed at the start what kind of vibe we wanted to go with it, and it's pretty much already done. Figured that we'd get it sorted as soon as possible so it wasn't another thing to worry about later. My mill has always been a bit of a nightmare but has been better since the news that I'm pregnant, though not without issue. For example, she told me that I should lose some weight and that it wasn't healthy for me or the baby. She knows that I used to struggle with anorexia and I'm not any sort of unhealthy weight. In the past I've kept my mouth shut and let Felix deal with her. As the nursery has almost been completed, she suddenly decided to invite herself around more. I work from home currently. She comes in on the regular, asks me when I'm going to have lunch and oh, could you just pop me something in too? And then we'll wander into the nursery and start rearranging things. I know this sounds stupid, but once she literally bought an IKEA bag full of stuff that she put in there. It doesn't match. But I've never said anything really beyond, oh, thanks so much for the thought, etc. Yesterday when she came around uninvited, she looked me up and down and said, really? Joggers? Thank God Felix isn't here, and then walked into the nursery and started asking me where the pillow she'd put in the crib had gone, why I'd taken out the fairy lights hanging on the wall right by it, etc. I explained that they were potential safety hazards to the future baby and that I'd taken them out. She started with, oh, well, I've had 3 children and I really think you should take more of my advice, and then looked me in the eyes and said, you're really not going to be a good mother at this rate. I don't know if it was the pregnancy hormones, but I just stared at her for a moment and then told her to get out of the house. I'd been up all night and had loads of work and wasn't in the mood. She got very uptight about it and then left. Felix says he's going to talk to her and tell her that she shouldn't be reorganizing anything without our permission, but I don't know if it was just the hormones and I'm being unreasonable. Update 1. Felix and I sat down and had a conversation about how to manage his mother going forwards. I told him everything that she had said to me and he was adequately furious with her. He asked me exactly what I wanted done in the future so that she'd understand where our boundaries are and follow them. I told him that I'd rather him speak to her alone at first so that I wasn't immediately made out to be the bad guy. I acted on advice and locksmith has been called to change the locks on the house, and Felix has ordered us a Ring doorbell off Amazon with the assurance I'll be able to put it in. He hates doing the electrics, but you know how it is, I'll leave him to it, lol. And then he called up Mill and organized a lunch date for today so they could have a talk between themselves. He got back in the afternoon and as he walked into the door, smiled at me and went sorted. And, characteristically, went to go and make himself a cup of tea. I got a message a few minutes later from her saying she was very sorry for what she had said to me, that she was in the wrong. Only going to visit when invited, not going to go into the nursery anymore, and was going to respect the rules and boundaries that he and I set for our home life and for our child. And after added that she was sorry for the comments he'd made on my appearance. I'll believe it when I see it, but at least it's a good start, and we've all agreed to go for dinner at some point to talk about future expectations when the baby comes. I talked to Felix, and he said that she'd been offended at first, didn't believe she'd done anything wrong, and he also specifically said she hit with the spiel of "oh, I must be such an awful mother then," and he told me he'd told her it's not about that, it's about you disrespecting my wife, our child and our home. If you continue, you're not going to dream of being able to see your grandchild. She was apparently and unsurprisingly sulky, and he told her to apologize, and she said she would and to her credit did. Thank you all for your advice about how to handle things going forwards with the locks and everything. The amount of support was crazy, but I can't thank you all enough. I feel so much calmer about the situation. I don't know if she's going to stick to what she said going forwards, but at least boundaries have been set and I know that Felix has my back. On a lighter note to end, I asked if he had anything he wanted to say to the people who had commented, and he said, "Can you add that photo of me in Florida? Felix. That's not even slightly relevant, shame. What do you want for tea? Thank you." Oop, I told him this and he replied, "I know what the people want lol." Edit, I'll describe the photo, and hopefully somewhat satiate the people. It was when we were in the Florida Keys, and he's sitting on a comically large yellow wooden beach chair, think 3 times the normal size of one. He's got relatively short wavy brown hair, he's holding up a red spade in one hand and giving a thumbs up with the other, and has this stupidly big goofy grin on his face. He just finished making a sandcastle, which is somewhat visible in the background, and had sat down to have a rest. Bless him. He also told me to add that he looks really fit, so do with th, at what you will.